Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Medina City Schools Board of Education meeting for January 10th, 2022. And if everybody would stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Gotcha. Okay, at this time, we are going to administer the oath of office to our newly elected board members.
If you don't, please stand. We did this back on the 5th, so I just want to do it for posterity. If you all please raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Andrew West,
Solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Ohio.
solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
And that I will faithfully and impartially discharge my duties as board member of the Board of Education of Medina City School District, Medina County, Ohio.
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge my duties as board member of the Board of Education of Medina City School District, Medina County, Ohio,
To the best of my ability and in accordance with the laws now in effect and hereafter to be enacted.
to the best of my ability and in accordance with the laws now in effect and hereafter to be enacted.
During my continuance in said office and until my successor is elected and qualified.
During my continuance in said office until my successor is elected and qualified.
Congratulations. We welcome our new board members and look forward to working with all of you. Thank you. Mr. Chambers, you call the roll.
Mr. Nichols,
Here.
Ms. Parker,
Here.
Ms. Pritchard,
Here.
Mr. Ross,
Here.
Mr. West.
Here.
Thank you.
This time, I'll entertain a motion to elect our president of the school board.
I'd like to move that Rebecca Parkhurst as nominated for president.
Thank you. Mr. Chambers.
Mr. Nichols,
Yes.
Ms. Pritchard,
Yes.
Mr. Ross,
Aye.
Mr. West,
Yes.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Abstain.
solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Ohio. And that I will faithfully and impartially discharge my duties as president of the Board of Education of the Medina City School District, Medina County, Ohio. To the best of my ability and in accordance with the laws now in effect and hereafter to be enacted. During my continuance in said office and until my successor is qualified.
It's a quick game of musical chairs. Thank you all. I would like to take a moment just to thank everyone who worked and voted to re-elect me to another term on the board. I want to thank my family, friends, neighbors, and everyone who helped me. I am grateful for the support and confidence from the community, and it truly has been a privilege and an honor to serve the last 6.5 years, and I'm excited and looking forward to the next 4. And thank you to this board for electing me just now to serve as the presiding officer this year. I want to especially thank my family. My husband and my sons are here tonight, and I would not be able to serve if I did not have their support. As many busy families can attest, it can be very difficult at times to coordinate schedules with everyone amongst all the activities and to have dinner together as a family. I usually miss dinner on board evening nights, and my family is always all too eager to order takeout when I'm not home. I'm sure that's what they'll be doing tonight. And not only do I appreciate John, Jake, and Nick, your ability to be self-sufficient and manage dinner, but I thank you very much for your patience and your flexibility and grace, and I love you very much. Thank you. As the majority of our board is new, I will also ask for the patience and the grace from everyone as we work out the kinks and find our rhythm as a new board. Thank you. At this time, I will ask the other board members if someone would nominate a board member for vice president.
I'd like to nominate Ron Ross for vice president.
Second?
I'll second Ron.
Thank you, Ms. Pritchard. Thank you, Mr. West. Mr. Chambers?
Yes, Ms. Pritchard.
Yes.
Mr. West.
Yes.
Mr. Nichols.
Yes.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Mr. Ross.
Abstain.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Mr. Ross. If you'd rise for the oath of office, please. Oh, sorry. Oath first. Oath first.
Hi, Ron Ross.
I, Ronald Ross,
Solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge my duties as Vice President of the Board of Education of Medina City School District, Medina County, Ohio,
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge my duties as Vice President of the Board of Education of Medina City School District, Medina County, Ohio,
to the best of my ability and in accordance with the laws now in effect and hereinafter to be enacted,
to the best of my ability and in accordance with the laws now in effect and hereinafter to be enacted,
during my continuance in said office and until my successor is elected and qualified.
during my continuance in said office and until my successor is elected and qualified.
Congratulations.
I just want to thank everyone for having the confidence in me. Thank you, Mrs. Parker. It's going to be an honor to serve with you and the rest of the board members. Appreciate it. And this, I also want to thank just this wonderful staff that we have in Medina City Schools. It's going to be an honor to serve another year with all of you, and I look forward to a great 2022. Thank you.
At this time, I'm requesting approval of the consent agenda for the organizational meeting.
I'll give a first.
Okay, Mr. West, first motion. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols.
Mr. West,
Yes.
Mr. Nichols,
Aye.
Ms. Pritchard,
Aye.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Thank you.
And on the consent agenda this evening, item number 1, resolution to set the time, date, and place of regular meetings in accordance with Ohio Revised Code 3313.15. Unless otherwise notified, all regular monthly meetings will begin at 6 p.m. and will be held at the Medina High School Professional Development Center. An executive session, which is closed to the public, may be held prior to or after the public meeting. Work sessions will be called as a special meeting and held if necessary. I do want to note to the board that we have made an adjustment with the work sessions, that they will be called as needed. This will create an adjustment to our regular board meetings. In the past, we've utilized the work sessions for presentations and to provide the board with additional information. We are now going to be including those as part of the regular board meetings. That's something we actually started doing at the end of the last calendar year during the last several months, and you're going to see that this evening when we get into the regular meeting, as we have more presentations for tonight's regular meeting than we typically would. The reason for that adjustment is to consolidate our monthly meetings, but continue to provide the board as well as the community the same information. Of course, any time that we need an actual work session, time for the board to work together, any board member can present that to our board president, vice president, or myself, and we can have that discussion about scheduling an actual work session. Number 2, it is recommended that the Board of Education set their compensation at the maximum level provided for in the Ohio Revised Code and the Ohio Constitution. I do want to note that the compensation for a board member is very low. I want to say it's $125 a meeting, so it's paid per meeting. So that doesn't include all the extra work that goes into being a board member, which is quite a bit in preparing for board meetings, as well as doing work outside of board meetings. So it really is a minimal amount of compensation for the dedication that our board members provide for our students as well as our district. Number 3, bond approval. It is recommended that the Board of Education accept the bond presented by the treasurer as stated below. The treasurer shall present his bond in the amount of $500,000 for approval by the board. The approved bond shall be deposited with the board president and a copy filed with the county auditor. And then number 4 is a resolution for liability assurance approval. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the resolution for the purchase of a liability insurance policy in the amount of $50,000 to insure the board against liability of the Director of Business Affairs. The Director of Business Affairs shall present the insurance policy to the board president. Just to note, the bond approval as well as the resolution, these are both insurance policies that are mandated per Ohio Revised Code for our treasurer as well as our Director of Business Affairs. And it has to do with the amount of finances that they deal with on a regular basis. I believe Mr. Chambers had mentioned to me that this may be the last year that a bond is utilized for him, and he'll be transitioning to a liability insurance as well after your next contract, so in the not too distant future. Number 5, standing resolutions. It is recommended that the following standing resolutions be approved. Advances on tax settlements, authorization for the treasurer to secure advances from the auditor when funds are available and payable to the school district. Investment of inactive funds, authorization for the treasurer to invest inactive funds at the most productive interest rate whenever inactive funds are available. Number 3, authorizing the superintendent to hire staff between board meetings. To authorize the superintendent during periods when this board is not in session to make offers of employment directly to candidates for either teaching or non-teaching positions on behalf of this board, subject to a subsequent vote of ratification by this board, provided, however, that upon ratification by this board, the employment shall be deemed effective as of the date and time of the employee's acceptance of the superintendent's offer. Nothing in this resolution shall require the Board of Education to employ or continue to employ an individual who has not provided a criminal records check satisfactory to the board or who has not satisfied any other prerequisites to employment created by law or board policy. The authorization provided by this resolution shall remain in effect until withdrawn by formal action of this board. Authorizing superintendent to accept resignations, to authorize the superintendent on behalf of this board to accept resignations which have been submitted by employees during times when this board is not in session, subject to ratification by this board, provided, however, that upon ratification by this board, such resignation shall be deemed effective as of the date and time of the superintendent's acceptance. The authorization provided by this resolution shall remain in effect until withdrawn by formal action of this board. And to approve district purchasing agents, appoint the superintendent or designee and the treasurer as district purchasing agents. Resolution for public records training. It is recommended that the Board of Education adopt the resolution to appoint David Chambers, treasurer, as the Medina City Schools Board of Education's designee to attend public records training pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 149.43 and Ohio Revised Code 109.43. Mileage rate reimbursement. It is recommended that the Board of Education establish the district mileage rate reimbursement for 2022 to be the current IRS mileage rate on the date of travel. Employment of legal counsel. It is recommended that the Board of Education employ the following firms as our legal counsel to the board on an as-needed basis. These are all the same legal counsel that the board has historically used. There are no changes from last year. OSBA membership. It is suggested that the Board of Education renew membership in the Ohio School Boards Association for the 2022 calendar year. And number 10, it is recommended that the Board of Education select the Board of Education president to serve as the delegate and the Board of Education vice president to serve as the alternate representing the board at the 2022 OSBA annual business meeting.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda, items 1 through 10.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols. Any questions or comments from the board? Mr. Chambers?
Mr. Ross?
Aye.
Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Ms. Pritchard?
Aye.
Mr. West?
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst?
Aye.
Thank you.
And we do have several superintendent committee appointments, curriculum, facilities, finance, policy, and business advisory. And historically, board members, we've had 2 board members serve on each of these committees. These do not require board approval, but we do want to publicly share the assignments of the board members on these committees. These committees do play a very important role in the work we do as a board and as a district. Serving on these committees not only are board members as well as myself and our treasurer, Dave Chambers, but we also have other relevant administrators in the district. In addition, we also have community members and staff members that also serve on these various committees. These committees help us to formulate decisions and goals moving forward relevant to the specific areas as items are presented to the Board of Education for decision. The first committee is Curriculum and Instruction. Looks like we do have these on here for recommendation. The first committee, it is recommended that the Board of Education appoint Joseph Nichols and Rebecca Parkhurst to serve as representatives of the board on the Medina City Schools Curriculum and Instruction Committee. The second committee, Facilities, it is recommended that the Board of Education appoint Ronald Ross and Andrew West to serve as representatives of the board on the Medina City Schools Facilities Committee. And then the Finance Committee, it is recommended that the Board of Education appoint Joseph Nichols and Jean Pritchard to serve as representatives of the board on the Medina City Schools Finance Committee. And then the Policy Committee, it is recommended that the Board of Education appoint Rebecca Parkhurst and Jean Pritchard to serve as representatives of the board on the Medina City Schools Board Policy Committee. And then the Business Advisory Committee, it It is recommended that the Board of Education appoint Joseph Nichols and Ronald Ross to serve as representatives of the board on the Medina City Schools Business Advisory Committee. And then it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the regularly scheduled monthly meeting dates for the Curriculum and Instruction, Finance, Facilities, and Policy Committees for 2022. All of these committee meeting dates will be posted on our website. These meetings are also open to the public, not for participation, but to come and view the committee meetings. We are open to inviting visitors to the meeting if they reach out to us in advance with their interest and reason for wanting to participate in the meeting. We're also often looking for new members of the various committees, and I would say if people are interested in participating in any of these committees, I would encourage them to reach out to us to express that interest. We do have various parameters on each of the committees for participation, and that's something that we would definitely like to discuss further if there's an interest.
I'll make a motion to approve the superintendent committee appointments.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Thank you, Ms. Pritchard. Any board comments, discussion? I did want to point out that because of the timing of this organizational meeting, that the committee meeting dates, there will be no committee meetings in January. We'll start those in February. Mr. Chambers?
Mr. Ross?
Aye.
Ms. Pritchard?
Aye.
Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Mr. West?
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst?
Aye.
Thank you.
Next up, we have City and Community Committee representation. It is recommended that the Board of Education appoint the Assistant Superintendent and Director of Business Affairs to serve as the delegates representing the Medina City Schools at the Medina Community Recreation Center, and Board Member Ronald Ross will serve as the ex officio committee member, and this is for the Recreation Center Committee.
Make a motion to approve the city and community committee representation, G1.
I'll second.
Mr. Chambers? Oh, I'm sorry. Any comments or discussion from the board? Okay. Mr. Chambers?
Mr. Ross?
Aye.
Mr. West?
Aye.
Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Ms. Pritchard?
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst?
Aye.
Thank you.
Next is Advisory Commission on Communication Enhancement Support Services, also known as Access. This is actually a city organization that they've asked us to serve on as committee members. This is the local television station. It is recommended that the Board of Education appoint the Director of Community Relations and the Director of Technology to serve as representatives of the Medina City Schools on the Advisory Commission on Communication Enhancement Support Services, and Board Member Andrew West will serve as the ex officio committee member.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Any board comments or discussion? Mr. Chambers?
Ms. Pritchard?
Aye.
Mr. Ross?
Aye.
Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Mr. West? No.
Aye.
And Ms. Parkhurst?
Aye.
Thank you.
And then OSBA liaisons, there's two of them. The first is legislation, the second is student achievement. It is recommended that the Board of Education select Rebecca Parkhurst to serve as the OSBA legislative liaison. And it is recommended that the Board of Education select Ronald Ross to serve as the OSBA student achievement liaison. And these are primarily to provide the board updates and information in these two areas, as well as represent Medina City Schools at the OSBA conference for these committee meetings.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the OSBA liaisons.
Second?
Thank you. Any comments or discussion from the board? Thank you, Mr. Chambers.
Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Mr. Ross?
Aye.
Ms. Pritchard?
Aye.
Mr. West?
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst?
Aye.
Thank you.
And last up, I jumped ahead of myself, are the committees that we don't need to vote on. These are district committees. Most of these committees are either in relation to organizations associated with the school district, such as the Medina City Schools Foundation, or are part of our negotiated agreement, which is our insurance committee. But we do invite and ask board members to be a part of those conversations as we talk about these various topics. So for our insurance committee, which talks about healthcare services for all of our employees, we ask that Ron Ross and Andrew West serves as an alternate. And then for our foundation, which provides our teachers with grants as well as scholarships for our students, we asked Jean Pritchard to serve, and Rebecca Parkhurst is the alternate. Partnership Council, we get together with Partnership Council several times a year. This is all of our PTOs as well as community leaders, including the mayor, the chief of police, and other leaders within the community to discuss what's happening in the district as well as what's happening within the community. And we ask Ron Ross to serve with this group and Joe Nichols as the alternate. And then the Performing Arts Center Committee for the PAC, we ask Ron Ross and Andrew West as the alternate. And I think that's all we have to present for the organizational meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Sable. At this time, do I need to? Thank you. I'd like to adjourn the organizational meeting. May I get a motion to adjourn, please, from someone?
I'll motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. West.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols. Mr. Chambers?
Mr. West?
Aye.
Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Ms. Pritchard?
Aye.
Mr. Ross?
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ready? Okay. Okay, at this time, I would like to call to order the tax budget hearing for fiscal year 2023. Roll call, please.
Mr. Nichols?
Here.
Ms. Pritchard?
Here.
Mr. West?
Here.
Mr. Ross?
Here.
Ms. Parkhurst?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chambers.
Thank you, Ryan. All right. The tax budget is an annual budget that we have to produce. We are basically looking at producing what is known as an amended certificate for the county auditor and also producing estimates that the county auditor uses to prepare tax rates for next year. If you look on Schedule 1, you're at Schedule B right now. Let's go to Schedule 1. One more. There you go. Schedule 1, the purpose of Schedule 1 is to meet the requirement of Ohio Revised Code 5705.04, which requires the taxing authority of each subdivision to divide the taxes levied into separate levies. And as you can see, these are all the levies that have passed for the school district since 1976. The one there that on top is inside millage. That is millage that is given to the school districts by the General Assembly when the school districts were first set up back in the 1800s. So if you go on to Schedule 2. Schedule 2, the purpose is to demonstrate the need to produce property tax revenues to cover the estimated expenditures for the budget year. Property tax revenue includes real estate taxes, personal property taxes, and homestead and rollback monies. What we have to do here when we set up the budget is, if you look at the far two right columns, that is the tax year next year. It's actually tax year 22. We are setting the estimates out there so the county auditor could use the second line down, the revenues, property taxes, to develop tax rates for the 22 tax year. And if everything goes right, they'll set it to where we want it. If everything goes wrong and we underestimate, they'll set it to where we underestimate. So what we try and do is we try to hedge our bets and come a little bit over of what we really want to estimate, because anywhere along the line, with reappraisal, with valuations going up and down, that may change. So again, we're a year out from what the auditor will be giving us, and we have to get this all set and get them as correct as possible. Schedule 3. One more down. Thank you. The general purpose of Schedule 3 is to produce the official certificate of estimated revenues. If you go to the next page also, you'll see the detail on Schedule 3. These are all our other funds that we have in the district. And what we do with these is every time the board passes an appropriation or a supplemental to the appropriation, the county auditor matches it against our estimated resources here. If our appropriations, meaning what we are estimating to budget for the upcoming year, is more than our amended certificate, we are basically slapped on the wrist and saying we went over our estimates here. So what we try and do is we try and keep this certificate of estimated resources up to date with monies coming in all the time, and then the county auditor, again, as I say, compares. Schedule 4. Schedule 4 is basically our outstanding debt. And you could see we had refunding bonds in 2013 from a 99 bond, and we also had refunding bonds for the other portion of the 99 bond in 2015. That's the amount we have outstanding still, $18.5 million in the one and $4.2 million in the second, and what we need to pay for principal and interest for the 2022 tax year. And Schedule 5 is for tax anticipation notes. The district does not have any tax anticipation notes at this time. Any questions? Thank you.
If there are no questions, I will take a motion for adjournment. Just to note that this tax budget document will be voted on at the regular meeting following this hearing.
Second, for adjournment.
Or first.
I'll
Mr.
do
Ross making the motion.
I'll second that.
Mr. Nichols seconds. Thank you.
Mr. Ross?
Aye.
Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Ms. Pritchard?
Aye.
Mr. West?
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right, I'd like to call to order the January 10th regular board meeting. Please note this meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business. It is not to be considered a public community meeting. There is a time for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda. Mr. Chambers, would you call roll, please?
Yes, Mr. Nichols?
Here.
Ms. Pritchard?
Here.
Mr. West?
Here.
Mr. Ross?
Here.
Ms. Parkhurst?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, first up, we have approval of minutes. There's two, they're broken out. The first is the regular meeting from December 13th, 2021. If someone would like to make a motion to approve those minutes, please.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes from December 13th, 2021.
Thank you,
I'll
Ms.
make a
Ross.
second.
Thank you, Ms. Pritchard. Any board comments, discussion, corrections to the minutes? Hearing none?
Mr. Ross?
Aye.
Ms. Pritchard?
Aye.
Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Mr. West?
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst?
Aye.
Thank you.
And then next up is the special meeting on January 5th. Someone make a motion?
I'll make a
please?
motion to approve.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any comments or discussion from the board? Hearing none?
Ms. Pritchard?
Aye.
Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Mr. West? Mr. Ross?
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, do the board members have any additions, removals, or modifications they'd like to make to the agenda this evening? Would someone like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Ross.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. West. Mr. Chambers?
Mr. Ross? Aye. Mr. West?
Aye.
Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Ms. Pritchard?
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
First up on my communications, I would like to take a moment to thank and recognize our Board of Education. January is Board of Education Recognition Month. I've always wondered why they did it in January, because that's when all the new board members come onto the board, and as we all know, we've got 3 new members of our board that are just starting to serve. So I'd like to thank you for the work to come. One thing I do want to say is we have been so wrapped up in COVID as we've needed to be to ensure that we've been providing the safest environment for students and staff within our buildings, that I am hopeful that as a board we have the opportunity to really be focused on academics and education, and that's an experience that all of our board members get to enjoy. And it's not that we haven't done that over the past 2 years. I'm actually quite proud of the work that we've been able to do despite COVID with academics. But I know that many of our board members, the reason why you run for election is because your passion for education and students in the classroom. And unfortunately, right now, COVID is one of those things that we're having to soldier through in order to provide that environment for our students. So I have no doubt that this board is going to collaborate together in order to provide the best for our students. And I want to thank all of you for the work you've done already working up to here. Already in a short week. Many of the people here may not realize, but we already had a several-hour evening with a board training where we had Ohio School Boards Association come up and work with the entire board in board training. And I think that shows the level of dedication that this board has in terms of moving forward and trying to run things in a way that's in the best interests of our students, our staff, and as well as our community. So thank you. At this time, I'd like to invite Christina Hammond up to the podium. She's going to be presenting on new math pathways. And she recently presented to our curriculum committee just prior to winter break.
My name is Christina Hammond. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a curriculum specialist for grades 6 through 12 here at Medina, and I'm here to talk to you about pathways. So next slide. So I have been personally involved in this work at the state level on several committees, so I'm fortunate enough to be able to come to you to speak firsthand experience and not just secondhand information. But some of the things I wanted to talk to you about tonight was why for the Math Pathways Project and how did we get these pathways developed, and then most importantly, how will the pathways impact and benefit our students. So next slide. So for the why, we have sort of three pieces going on here. We have a changing landscape in careers, which we've been sort of discussing the last several years with our portrait of the graduate work. And if you were to look up some of the emerging trends in careers, you'll notice that there's an increase in the need for quantitative literacy skills, data analysis, and computer science and programming. So you'll see that noted within the pathways. The other changes are within the landscape of education, both with higher ed and with high school. So I'm going to talk briefly about each of those. So next slide. So at the higher ed level, many of us are probably familiar with the college algebra experience. And this has been sort of an ongoing issue with college, just in that this has been a gateway course for many students. It's been both as a college graduation requirement, but then also it's meant to prepare students to take calculus. Long story short, students haven't been super successful in college algebra. In fact, only about half of them have been passing, and of those, only about 10% actually go on to take calculus. And what the higher ed people have found is that when you dive into the different careers and degree majors, only about 20% of students actually need to take college algebra to be ready for calculus. And what it would be far more beneficial is if students were to take something like statistics or quantitative reasoning. Next slide. So they sort of formed all of their own subcommittees and came up with these new entry-level math courses. So they're kind of overhauling the college algebra to prepare students for calculus. There's also a quantitative reasoning course as a freshman course and a statistics course. And you'll see some other emerging pathways, which these are just about finished, ready to launch for the fall. So you'll see data science, tech math, discrete math, and math for elementary education. At the same time, we have something similar happening with high school. We have Ohio law that says all students must take Algebra 2 or the equivalent before they graduate. And so that has also sort of resulted in a one-size-fits-all for our students, just like it has happened at the college level, where it's both a college requirement and it's also meant to prepare students to take pre-calculus and then calculus. And again, not with a lot of success on either front. Next slide. So we sort of have this one-size-fits-all high school experience feeding into now what we'll see as multiple pathways at the college level. So sort of the task for Ohio Department of Education and the subcommittees that were formed were to look at the law and define what does it mean to be equivalent to Algebra 2, and then to reimagine what the high school math experience could be for our students. So as you can see here, this was a very collaborative effort between Ohio Higher Ed and also Ohio Department of Education. They were consulted by University of Texas, the Dana Center. They're actually working with several states on the national level on this very same project. And as you can see, we've got several collaborative groups from Advisory Council, which was sort of an oversight group. You had the Math Pathways Architects. That was one of the committees I served on. And then you had work groups for each of the courses that came out of the Pathways work. Something that's really important to note was that this was a very strong collaboration between both high school and higher ed. So on both the work groups and the architects groups, it was a good mix of high school teachers along with 2- and 4-year college university professors. Next slide. So the goals of the high school initiative were to make sure that we were creating pathways and courses that would be equally rigorous for all students, regardless of the pathway that they choose. They should be relevant to what the students are wanting to pursue as future career goals, so that they would be more relevant to their futures instead of, what Algebra 2 may or may not be relevant for them at the time. The pathway should also be flexible because, as we know, high school students, they tend to change their minds. So we want them to be able to go in and out of the different pathways as their interests change. And then also having a smooth transition from high school to college. Okay, so the very first thing that the architects needed to address was, and I'm not going to read through all of this, don't worry, this is for your reference, what is the definition of rigorous courses? Because rigor in coursework tends to get misinterpreted as hard, takes a lot of time, and is a lot of work. And what we really mean by rigor is that we want students to be engaged in complex tasks where there's high level of thinking. It should be highly applied to real world, should be applied to specific contexts and scenarios. So kind of thinking in terms of the lines of rigor, when we think of equivalent courses, we're really talking about equally rigorous courses, so that there's a high level of thinking no matter which course they take, but the content can be different. Next slide. So the outcome is that Ohio high schools are now able to offer 5 different pathways for their students starting next school year. This will be based on, of course, availability of staffing and what would be most relevant for each student population. There are pilots in progress for quantitative reasoning, which I'm personally teaching the pilot course here at the high school this year. And then there's also a small pilot for data science, and that's going to get expanded next year. Next slide. Okay, so in case you couldn't see, the equivalent courses that can be offered, in addition to taking Algebra 2, students could also take a stats and probability course, and that would count as an equal credit, quantitative reasoning, data science, and then in the works, they are also creating a discrete math with an intro to computer science. Okay, so what this means for our high school students starting this next school year, and they're going to start registering for classes here in the next couple weeks, is just like always for their first and second courses, Medina students will still take Algebra 1 and Geometry. Those will be graduation requirements. But then after that, for course 3, it used to be they just had a choice between Algebra 2 and Honors Algebra 2. So as you can see, we've expanded those offerings. We're going to be able to include Algebra 2. The math modeling and reasoning is the quantitative reasoning course. And then we had an existing Intro to Stats course, which we will revise to meet the requirements for the state's stats and probability course. So they'll have those 3 pathways. And then as you can see, we will also be offering weighted options for each of those. Not next year, but the following year, we do plan to offer the data science course. We just want to kind of take what we already have started and refine and make those as best as we possibly can for next year, and then we'll add another one the following year. And then for their 4th course, you can see that they can choose another course from the Pathways offerings, or there's some additional courses that they can take after that, including several AP and honors courses, and then again the CCP for dual credit. Okay, so a lot of times when we say quantitative reasoning or data science, those are usually the 2 that many people don't know what those are. So I included some information on those. So quantitative reasoning is problem solving and modeling, but you're doing it through the lens of contextual problems. So really the math that they need for these types of problems, they will have learned either in middle school or up through high school geometry. There'll be a little bit of extra that'll be kind of added in there, but it's really about the critical thinking and applying and putting multiple skills from math together to be able to solve large complex problems. There's also a lot of spreadsheet work being done in this course. So the other thing that's being developed currently is they're kind of looking at the alignment between the Excel credentialing exam and what is being taught in terms of spreadsheeting skills, because it's very close to where students could maybe take the credentialing exam after taking this course. And another thing, just some differences between what you would consider a traditional math class versus a quantitative reasoning. I put the little portrait of a bee stamp of approval next to some of those items, as you can see. Next slide. And then again, for your reference, I have 4 different student scenarios. I just wanted you to be able to see the flexibility within the pathways. So, you know, when we were working on this project, we said to school districts, if they weren't able to offer all the pathways, if you could choose one, quantitative reasoning would be a great one. And you can kind of see from these 4 different scenarios where if you have someone that's a student that's maybe undecided, or they don't think they're interested in like a math science, you know, type of career that would require calculus, if they take quantitative reasoning, there's a little bit of everything in there where they might be able to discover a passion there. And then they can decide what to do their senior year. And then the second course that a lot of times people don't know what they are is data science, because it's a pretty new emerging trend in the career field. But if you kind of think about all the critical thinking and problem solving of a quantitative reasoning class, and you combine that with the stats and probability content, and then you throw in a little bit of intro coding and programming, you have data science. So the curriculum that's being piloted was actually developed by UCLA, and it's being used in high schools out in California. So that's what we're piloting here in Ohio, and what we'll probably be using year after next when we go to teach it. Okay, so hopefully you'll see that this does benefit our students. There'll be an opportunity for students to be able to make a choice on classes for math that they'll get to take both their junior and senior year, allowing for a deeper learning experience for everybody. It gives them a chance to be able to collaborate and have some inquiry, depending on which pathway they choose. And then with all of these, they'll hopefully start to see expanded learning beyond the classroom. And then just some other additional benefits. A couple that I'm really excited about, just the career-focused lessons that I've noticed just in teaching the QR pilot. I love the idea of students to be able to have the time and flexibility to explore passions while still in high school. You know, before they were kind of locked into what they had to take for math, and then you go off to college, and now it costs time and costs money, and now students will have a chance to be able to do that exploring here while they're still in high school. And then, you know, just the added benefit of being able to expand dual credit opportunities to students. Again, education, higher ed is quite expensive, so being able to offer that as an extra opportunity is very exciting. So, thank you.
I just want to thank Christina for presenting. She's one of our teacher leaders within our district. She's a curriculum specialist for 6th through 12th grade, a former math teacher, but she worked with technology at the board office for quite a while as well. So she's really been a lead teacher in leadership roles for quite a while and been quite impactful on the things that we've been doing. But we've been fortunate to be able to have her on the Department of Instruction's team the last several years as part of our last strategic plan, and give much needed support to teachers at the high school. And this has been the result of some of that work, so thank you. And next I want to invite Tina Cassidy, our Director of Instruction, to talk about new high school course offerings.
Okay, good evening, everybody. This is one of the more fun presentations I get to do every year because all of our new high school courses equal new opportunities for kids, so this is pretty exciting. The first course you'll see on this list is Family Consumer Science / Cooking, so we are really excited to bring this back. This is a course we had many years ago. It was cut when we were doing some budget cuts. And every year, every time we ask students, what class do you want to take? What classes would you like to see offered? Cooking was always number one on their list. So we're really excited that we're able to bring that back. Our Carrie Schreck, who is our high school counselor, CDC, projects that we'll be able to have 300 students take this class, so it's pretty exciting. Another class that we're excited about is Global Geography. This is going to be an elective that freshmen will be able to take as well. So right now we have lots of content area electives that usually juniors and seniors can take, but this is something that will be offered for freshmen and sophomores as well. And then the next two courses on there that you'll see are CCP, Quantitative Reasoning, and Statistics. And these are courses that Christina referenced that will be Algebra 2 equivalent courses. And then finally, the last course on this list is an honors speech course. Right now, we have an Introduction to Speech course, which is a semester class. This will be an honors speech course. It's going to be a year, and it will be similar to our honors debate course, where it'll be a competitive speech course. They'll go out and they'll be in competitions with the Ohio Speech and Debate Association. So this course will allow us to have the speech portion of speech and debate, where for so many years we've only had debate. So that's pretty exciting. And I know that we have Mr. Quaid here, who is head of our debate team and who has done an outstanding job. And this is really has been his passion to expand and grow this program. So we're really excited to be able to bring this to Medina. Thank you.
And I'd like to invite Amy Busby, Director of Community Relations. As you know, as many businesses across the country are struggling with personnel, getting high-quality people and having enough people to get into positions. That has been a constant struggle throughout this year across the district, not only with substitute teachers, but with bus drivers. That's why our parents have unfortunately been getting regular texts about changes to bus routes in the mornings. That has to do with personnel and needing to rearrange routes to assure that the buses are still running. Fortunately, this shortage is in large part due to COVID, which allows us to use some of the COVID funding that we've received for the recruitment of personnel. So we've decided to use some of those dollars towards an ad campaign and a recruitment campaign. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Amy to present to you a commercial that we've put together and give you some information about it.
Okay, thank you. Yep, as Aaron mentioned, there is a staffing shortage, not only in our industry, but industries across the nation. And we've had much discussion on how to address this issue within our district and really thought about some of the out-of-the-box thinking. And Ryan, there's a little presentation. If you can throw that up, it's attached to board docs. I don't want to hear that yet. Not yet. Yep, that. Perfect. You can scroll down. So we decided to partner with Spectrum Reach, which is part of Armstrong's advertising arm, is for lack of a better word. So the program that we've kind of addressed with them is to create a commercial, which you'll actually get to see that when we're all done here. But we've worked with them to provide 3 months worth of commercials. The cost is $6,000, and as Mr. Sable mentioned, that is covered by COVID funds. And why did we decide to do that? Because we need to increase the outreach throughout Medina County and Northeast Ohio to generate interest in positions that we have open in the district. So how is this going to work? What is our reach? Our geographic targets are all of Medina County and Northeast Ohio. The audience targets people interested in jobs, career resources, job listings, resumes, portfolios, and education. So it's kind of a two-prong approach. The first is there will be an average of about 2,100 commercials per month on the best cable TV networks. So there are approximately 32, and I'll kind of demonstrate where they'll be located over the next 3 months. And that outreach will be throughout Northeast Ohio, so that will include Medina County. The other opportunity that we have with them is that this same commercial will also air on smartphones, tablets, and any mobile device. So can you go back up? There we go. So about 31,000 commercials per month will be available on those devices. So there's quite a bit of outreach, and this will be through all of Medina County. Let's scroll up, Ryan. So I put the maps in here just to give you an idea of the outreach in Medina County alone. And if you scroll up again, it'll show you a map. Go up. Yep. This is going well. There we go. So these are all the Cleveland zones up to and including Medina County that will be covered by the commercials that will be seen on the networks. The next slide just kind of gives you an idea of exactly where it's going to land. So some of them to highlight are ESPN, ESPN2, CNN, a lot of channels that people regularly watch. It does not include, however, local stations like WKYC. So it's very specific to cable. So the run times are actually pretty good. Our mobile ads will run 12 a.m. to 12 p.m. It'll vary. The network ads will run Monday through Sunday at a variety of times on a variety of channels. And if you want to see that list, I can send that to you just so that you have an idea of exactly what time and place the ads will run. So I can send that to you separately. The other outlets that we are going to utilize as well is obviously Armstrong Channel 201. We were able to put this ad on Facebook and Twitter. So there's a lot of ways to continue our outreach and do a little out-of-box thinking. So now I present to you the commercial.
Medina City Schools needs you to become part of our hive, helping to mold the leaders of tomorrow. We are currently seeking various positions that offer competitive wages, paid holidays, retirement benefits for staff members who qualify, and paid training. Work Monday through Friday and be home each night to greet your family and have your summers off. For more information, call 330-725-8831 or go online and visit www.medinabees.org.
Be a part of my day.
Thank you, Amy. The next item I wanted to present to the board is the Ohio Coalition for Equity and Adequacy of School Funding. This is a statewide organization that currently approximately just over 200 schools in the state of Ohio are currently members of. The Ohio Coalition for Equity and Adequacy of School Funding is an organization that works to keep public dollars in public schools. They are the organization that is currently filed the lawsuit against EdChoice and EdChoice vouchers. EdChoice and EdChoice vouchers is the school program that utilizes public dollars to allow students to attend private schools utilizing public dollars. In Medina, when that happens, not only do we lose state funds, but we lose local funds as well. And the reason why is because the amount of dollars that are tagged to be able to transition over to the private school is more than the monies that we receive at the state level. In addition to that, they have changed the funding structure. So for us to be able to monitor the amount of funds that we would be losing on an annual basis is becoming more challenging as time is going on. What we do know is the amount of funds that we have lost historically. And I believe last year we lost approximately $1.2 million that was transitioned or that we paid to private schools for students to attend private school funds. What the Ohio Coalition for Equity and Adequacy of School Funding believes is that these are dollars that should be used within public schools to improve public schools and provide more equitable education for all students. The other challenge is that the amount of money that is going to the private schools is not equal to what the public schools are receiving because, again, we're having to use our local dollars that are raised through our local taxes and our levies in order to add additional monies to the state funds. I did provide some additional information to the Board of Education regarding this organization, and for us to be members of this organization, it would require a resolution by the board. There is a cost to be a part of this organization as well as a commitment because with the cost to be part of this organization, our district would become committed to being involved in this fight for public school dollars. The current cost is approximately $2 per student. I am looking for feedback from the board regarding potential membership in this organization and open to conversation today. If the board's not prepared to have conversation, that's something that I'm willing to have on an individual basis. And the intent would be to present the resolution if that's something that the board supports at the February Board of Education meeting.
Mr. Sable, is there any other Medina County schools in this organization?
There are currently no other Medina County schools in this organization that I am knowledgeable of.
Okay, and you don't know why? Just
No, I don't.
okay.
I think the biggest reason is the impact on the outer ring suburban schools has been less. The schools that have really been strongly impacted by the Ed Choice program has been the city schools, as well as some of the rural schools where they've just lost major amounts of dollars. We're very fortunate here in Medina. We've got outstanding schools, and people would like their children to go to the schools, so it's been less impactful on us. Now, I don't say $1.2 million loss is a small amount of money. That is, of course, on approximately an $80 million plus $90 million budget. But in the long run, that is impactful. And the concern is where that could go in the long term down the road, especially as we're heading into a situation where the funding has changed, and what's happening is the state is, instead of us paying directly to the private schools, we're now not receiving that money at all. So it's much harder for us to tell what money we're actually losing moving forward.
Any other questions or comments for Mr. Sable at this time? Mr. Sable, I do appreciate you bringing this to the board, and I anticipate that there will be further discussions from the board members as we digest this information you've shared with us this evening. Thank you.
And the last item I'd like to share with the board is the mask mandate adjustment. And this is a board action item that I have at the top of the board agenda. I just wanted to share some of the adjustments that I'm going to be presenting this evening to the mask mandate. At the core of the resolution, it's the same mask mandate that was put in place back towards the beginning of the school year, based off of the COVID rates, and continues to be the 1% rate. Where I'm asking the board for some adjustments to this mask mandate, we've added a line that would impact extracurriculars and athletics. The previous resolution did not include extracurriculars and athletics, so we could have a building that would go into a mask mandate due to COVID rates, and then have a concert that evening or athletic event that evening that would not be under a mask mandate. So the line added would put extracurricular activities under a mask mandate during the time period that an individual building was in a mask mandate as well. In addition to that, language has been added to provide the administration more flexibility in order to implement mask mandates when needed. The previous resolution did not provide any authority to the superintendent or administration to implement a mask mandate outside of the resolution. The adjusted language would give the superintendent or designee the authority to implement mask mandates when appropriate. Within the resolution, I did provide examples when this could be necessary. And this is based off of the experience of working with this resolution, which I think has been generally successful, but we have seen some gaps in the resolution, especially over the course of the past month or two. For instance, we've had scenarios occur where we've seen a building was definitely going into a mask mandate on a Tuesday. However, the building didn't go into the mask mandate until the following Monday because the resolution didn't allow us to implement it until then. I feel it would be advantageous if we know for sure that a building is going to be going into a mask mandate, that we be more proactive and not wait 3 or 4 days to do that. And I know that's an area that had created concern for parents, and an area that I had received feedback from parents as well. The other piece to this is looking at attendance. I would like the flexibility to be able to monitor attendance within a building, within a grade level, or even within a class in order to make decisions regarding mask mandates. And the reason why is because it is becoming much more challenging for us to monitor the COVID rates. We are still very fortunate that our community is working hard with us in reporting COVID numbers. But the reality is that you can go to any drugstore, and if they're in stock, you can purchase a COVID test. And I think we probably do need to do a better job communicating, but it's not always communicated to us whether a child tests positive or not with that COVID test. So there's times when students are out sick, and it may be due to COVID, and we never know that. And the parent may be doing everything right, but then it's not included within our number, which creates inaccuracies in terms of making decisions in terms of whether a building should be within a mask mandate or not. So being able to utilize in attendance would allow us to look at trends. We actually have seen this in some of our buildings where we've seen a large increase in absences, large proportions of classes that were out sick. We were able to work with the health department and identify that several of those were due to COVID, so it was likely that could be to COVID spread within the class. And actually take a more surgical approach and be able to put that grade level or that class within a mask rather than the entire building to effectively slow or stop the spread of that COVID situation. The other instance and flexibility that this would allow is an instance just like coming back from break where we have a high rash of cases and be able to go ahead and implement a mask mandate without the board action. In addition, within this resolution, I do have retroactive here, the mask mandate for the 2 weeks return to school. In addition to that, we did have an incident, I think the 2 days before break at Blake, where I did implement a mask mandate for a grade level because of that attendance situation, where we knew there were COVID positive cases going on and we had a large amount of absences in addition to those COVID cases without the reported COVID cases. And we were in a position of making a decision between closing the grade level, sending them home, versus putting them in masks and keeping them in school. And the goal is to keep our students in school. Any questions regarding the resolution or adjustments to the resolution?
Thank you, Mr. Sable. Mr. Chambers?
I'll try and keep it brief. We have supplementals on tonight's agenda. I'd like to say that I'm very happy with our food service department. Angie Sillers does a spectacular job. Her and her building managers do a great job there getting food to all of our students. The one thing that is hard for them is they don't have monies coming in other than federal government monies right now. And so they went out, the federal government decided that they would give funds for what they did last year. And your first supplemental here is what they think is worthy of all the administration that went on for last year's work of not only getting food to all of the individuals, but going ahead and taking care of what was going on during COVID. And actually, Angie and her team went overboard, and at the time, last year, between January and June, they were going and giving food to any child that wanted it. However, that was not mandated by the federal government at all. Now, going on to the second item, we have a principal's fund. This is a donation to Garfield, so they're using their monies. And then finally, we have a grant that they applied for, and I believe Angie is using that to go ahead and, is it warmers that they're getting, Aaron, or what are they using with that? Ovens itself. So she's using this grant. It was a grant that they applied for and finally received approval of. So she's happy with this. We're happy that they're getting it. So I just wanted to again extend, how grateful we are to have a good administrator there with our food service department. And then finally, the state's. I don't know. I don't know about our state legislators. If any of you know the state legislators, you got to really talk to them. They have House Bill 126. This went through the Senate, and the Senate. It's one of those things where you say, I don't know what they were thinking of. I know that the senators are being lobbied all the time, and big businesses have lobbies that are just down there, right across from the State House and that. But this House Bill 126 basically takes any ability of the Board of Education to challenge any valuation that is being either challenged or being decreased, to basically say that the board has no standing in this at all. You as taxpayers should be pissed, really, because we're here trying to defend your taxes, and the state legislators are basically making it that we can't defend the taxes that you are paying for. So under the current law, the school boards could ask county boards of revision to increase or maintain valuation to a given parcel. We also if a county board of revision rejects the school board's request to increase or maintain the value, we could go to the Ohio Board of Tax Appeals to try and get them to see our side of this. However, House Bill 126 would forbid school boards from initiating any property tax complaints with the Board of Revision. Furthermore, the bill forbids school boards from appealing to the Board of Tax Appeals. Now, this would allow school districts to only file counter complaints, and it would only allow school districts to initiate complaints at the county boards of revision on school district-owned properties. Now, if any of you know this, school district properties are considered governmental properties, and the government doesn't tax governmental properties. So it's a silly line that they put in there. And I know I'm getting on a soapbox, but God almighty, these are legislators, people. So anyhow, House Bill 126 is not a good piece of legislation. It would crimp the budgets of schools, and basically it would take away taxes that we are currently receiving, and if we're not getting the taxes that we are currently receiving, it means that we will be going out for more levies. And if you heard from the legislators 2, 3, 4 years ago, they were telling you, school districts are always out for levies. Well, guess what? This is legislation that basically puts a school district in a corner because they're taking away our ability to keep our taxes, and they're making us go out for levies, and then at the same time telling us you shouldn't be going out for levies. So that's House Bill 126. I just wanted to share with you, in the last tax year that we have, tax year 19, the school district maintained $224,000 in taxes by going through the boards of tax appeal and board of revision. However, the school district lost $150,000, $153,668 in taxes because of complaints. Now, the school district did not go after all these properties that the state legislators are throwing out there that we're always going after properties. I'll tell you, the total income that the Board of Education took in for complaints that we filed was a total of $22,693. So it's not as it's being painted. Let's put it that way. Is that a good enough explanation?
So, Mr. Chambers, just to clarify, you were saying of the $224,000 that was that we took in, $153,000 was appealed, and of that we were only able to get back another $22,000. Do I have those numbers right?
No, I'm saying the total that we retained is $224,000. We lost $153,000. So the grand total was basically around $450,000. We lost $150 of it. But through our complaints to the Board of Revision, the Board of Tax Appeals, we were able to hold on to $224,000.
Thank you.
Yes.
And I think one of the legislators are saying that we're going after homeowners. We don't go after homeowners typically who change with the seek evaluation changes. Typically
we do not.
Commercial property.
Correct.
And do you feel that the current process is currently working? I mean, to the best that it can be, or if there were changes being made, it's not what they're suggesting.
Well, I look at it that what we're doing here is the biggest piece that we do is try and maintain property taxes. Again, that's for all your benefit. We try and maintain. We don't try and gouge property taxpayers. We try and maintain. If it were a matter that the legislators would look at different ways for school districts to obtain the taxes that are out there. I mean, we in Medina County are very lucky because you as taxpayers gave us the sales tax back in 2007, and we've been able to use the sales tax to our benefit. We are the only county in the state of Ohio that has that benefit. So as I say, we are very lucky with that. That is an innovative way that we are able to go ahead and basically help the school district and help keep taxes low on the property taxpayer. Because anybody that comes into Medina County pays into the sales tax. It's not just Medina County residents. Does that answer it?
So,
Yes, thank you.
Mr.
And I want to point out, too, that you mentioned how Columbus doesn't want it. They want to take our money away here. They don't want us to have more levies. Plus, they also took away, was it August or September, an additional time that we could add, potential time to add a levy to the ballot as well. So call your legislators, please.
let me ask. So House Bill 126 is coming, right? It's on the agenda?
House Bill 126 is now going back to the House. It was passed by the Senate. It's now known as Sub-House Bill 126 because the Senate made changes. If the House does not approve it, it will go to a committee between the House and the Senate, and they can make any changes they want and approve any changes they want.
Well, okay, so how strong is the pushback? And is the pushback relevant? Does it have?
Are you talking pushback from schools, or
Yeah.
are you talking pushback from lobbyists?
From, school districts? I mean, is there enough support to kind of tell these legislators?
That's always a question, because if people believe that, one, they are being overtaxed, then people are going to say that they're overtaxed. The commercial and business industry believes it's overtaxed, but the majority of taxes is on the residential properties. It is not on the commercial and business. Now, it's just like anything else, though. You own a business that has $10 million in valuation, you're going to be paying more in tax, but than a person with $1 million in valuation. So yeah, I don't know, the pushback from the schools against this is very hard. I know that all of our associations are hard at work trying to keep where we are, because again, we want to maintain it. Part of the original legislation was, and I think it's still in there, that we have to notify the taxpayer that we are going to have a resolution to pass a resolution to go against them. However, the part that they didn't hit was, that means that if we go against the taxpayer, we have to meet the date requirements for going against the taxpayer. And if we don't have a board meeting, then we miss out on counter complaint against the taxpayer.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chambers.
Ms. Parkhurst,
Yes.
I just had one question for Mr. Sable. Going back to the lawsuit that was filed on, let me go back.
Ed Choice?
Yeah, the Ed Choice. The question is there a time frame that we have to, if we were thinking about doing that? Or
This request to join the organization, I don't know that there's a specific time frame.
Okay.
I just recently received this request to join the organization on January 4th, so.
Thank you. Next up is board communication. We can just go around the horn if anyone would like to discuss anything.
I'll go first. I'd just like to, is this a time just to say thanks? Yeah. I'd just like to say thanks to my family, my wife, and my two sons for encouraging me to run. And also, I'd like to say thanks to my mother and father, who live in South Carolina, but were longtime educators in the school district that I grew up in. My mother would be happy to see cooking coming back. She was a home ec teacher for her whole career. And my dad was a band director. So when I told them I was thinking about it, they both said, go for it. So I was happy that they encouraged me, and they were happy to see that I got elected. Also, I'd like to give, I don't know if anybody here watches it, but you got to watch the morning announcements. I love Mr. Gabrielson's class. Those kids are just hilarious. Some of you may have seen my son doing some dancing a few weeks ago. Where that came from, it did not come from me or his mother, but you can tell they're having a good time and they're having fun and learning stuff. So, and I'm looking forward to serving. I've been a long time Boy Scout leader in the community, and I've had the opportunity of serving the youth for over 15 years in our school system here at Ella Canavan and the Cub Pack, and through our troop now. And it's been an honor to serve them, and I look at this as an extension of continuing that service and practicing servant leadership for the district and our youth moving forward. So that's it.
I'd like to thank everybody for the welcome. It's been, fun. I got to meet a lot of people. Most of them were my former students, so that was kind of nice. I got to see them a little bit older. I did want to congratulate the swim teams. They had a good showing this past weekend, and also Jason Durrell, who was accepted to West Point. I think that's amazing. says a lot. He wants to commit that amount of time to protect our country and the freedoms that we're offered. So thank you. I'm planning on working hard to make things better for everyone across the district. And if I could drive a bus, I would. Thank you.
All right, both of you guys, hard act to follow, but I'll give it a go. I wanna very much, like Andrew had mentioned, thank my family, my wife. She pushed me and was like, "Hey, you'll be great for this. You've always wanted to do school board. Now's the time, if any time." So I want to thank her, and she's at home with our crazy 3-year-old right now, probably getting dinosaurs thrown at her, so sorry about that, but I'll be home soon. Hopefully he'll be in bed though. I also want to thank the district and the administration. They've been awesome. From the time that I decided to run for school board till tonight even, any questions that I had about the district, about just how a school board functions, anything like that, I've always had somebody that I could go out to and just ask the question. They were more than happy to answer any questions that I had. And then finally, I also want to thank since it is School Board Appreciation Month, thank everybody that's on the board here. I look forward to working with all of you. And I also want to thank the previous board because they kind of set up the district. I know about 4 or so years ago, the district might have been in a little bit of a rough shape, and we were working on recovering as far as the district, and they helped kind of get us to where we are. I know when I had talked with Superintendent Sable, he said, you know, we're starting to get back to where we were many years ago, and now we're even, and now we can move forward and start adding new and better programs onto the district. So I just want to make sure that they know that I am grateful for what they have done for the district in that regard, even if they aren't here on the board right now with us.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. I also want to congratulate all three of you, stand-up people, and congratulations, and I look forward to working with all of you in 2022. And thank you for stepping up and running. It was awesome. And I also want to thank Rob, Valerie, and Aaron, who are not on the board now, but they taught me a lot, and I appreciate their support and their help for me as well, like you mentioned, Joe. The other thing is I want to continue my huge not congratulations, but huge thank you to our staff. You know, every day they're coming to work, doing their jobs, and they're fighting, you know, through the pandemic, COVID, and I really appreciate that immensely. And everybody's doing it for one reason, and that is to keep the kids in the classroom. And it's so much appreciated of everything that you all are doing. And it does not go unnoticed. Just want you to know that. We love our staff, and we're going to keep supporting you. So just want you to remember that. Your board loves you. So thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations again to the 3 new board members. We're happy to have you join us on this journey together. And Mr. Sable had mentioned that we had OSBA training last week, and I do want to thank the district for hosting that training with OSBA for us, and for our administrative team that was there for us. I know that was another night for you all, and I appreciate you being there. No matter, I mean, I've been on the board 6.5 years, and I can still learn things. So I appreciate everyone being able to attend and taking advantage of that great opportunity that we had last week. I also wanted to take the chance to thank the administrators for the tour that we were all able to take part in. It was back in December, but I know that took away time from your day as well, and we do appreciate you sharing your time with us to get to know the district a little bit better. I will echo Ron's comments in thanking our staff and admin team. I know it's been a challenge back to school. Everybody's doing the best that they can, and I know everyone appreciates some grace and patience now during this time. So thank you for all their hard work and efforts they're doing with that. And lastly, one other part of our job is to advocate for public education. And I do appreciate Mr. Sable and Mr. Chambers updating us on potential legislation or other legislation updates as they come up. And I encourage everyone to reach out to their local reps. Sharon Ray is our rep in Medina, and Senator Mark Romanchuk is our senator, and let them know how you feel about this. Let them know how it is going to affect you as a taxpayer. We appreciate that, and we do need to continue our advocacy for public ed. All right, I think that's all I have. Are there any other board comments or anything? If not, it's time for public participation. We do have some people that have signed up to speak. I'm going to just go through our rules that we have in place for public participation. Attendees shall register their intention, which they did upon arrival at the meeting. If there is anyone that did not register after everyone else has spoke, if time allows, the board president will ask for public participation from all other attendees. When you approach the podium, please state your name, address, and affiliation. Please keep comments to a maximum of 3 minutes. No participant may speak more than once on the same topic unless all others who wish to speak on the topic have been heard. And all statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. No person may address or question board members individually. Rebecca Prentice, would like to come up and speak, please?
Hi, I'm Rebecca Prentice, 6399 Hooper Drive. I want to say thanks for letting us speak again. Can you hear me okay? Okay, thanks. I just wanted to speak real quickly. I don't even think I'm going to take the first 3 minutes. First, I wanted to say thank you for the mask mandate coming back to school. A lot of parents were very concerned. Obviously, COVID is pretty rough right now, so I wanted to just ask that going forward, I appreciate the hopeful changes that are coming to beyond the 1% for each building, because we know that testing is hard. It's not very available right now. There's a shortage of tests, and the tests are no longer required to be, they're not being done through a provider all the time with the home tests. So they're not always being reported. So it's kind of hard. And that 1% can be manipulated by just people not reporting. Some because they can't report because they can't test, others because they don't want to test their kids, and others because they don't want to report the positive test. So it's just important that we go by other metrics too, which would include how our community spread is, what our positivity rates are, how our hospital's doing, what our emergency wait times are, and how we have available capacity at the hospital available for those patients. They might be waiting in the emergency room, for a couple days, stuff like that. That's important because our school is a big transmission source. The students may be doing seemingly okay, but they take it home to their parents and spread it in the community. I think the other thing I wanted to just say is that in the Medina City School, in the mission, our mission statements, I've talked before about how important it is to be part of the community and to protect our community, but I think I wanted to focus on, how our students need to be globally prepared our students will be globally prepared citizens who value positive contributions to their community and their society. It's time for us to start, COVID isn't going anywhere. And obviously, we do have to focus on academics. It's time to put the drama to rest. If you look at other places in the country, there's no issue. There's no fight over the mask mandates. It's just a fact of life. And when our students leave Medina, they have to be prepared to go out into the world and be that productive person and not be fighting over these types of things. It's just time to focus on why we're here, and that's to learn. And that's really it. Thank you.
Thank you. Gretchen Long.
Gretchen Long. I am a parent in the district, and I live on Woodhaven Lane here in Medina. Can you hear me? Okay. Before I start, you can start the clock, that's okay. I want to mention, for those of you who don't recognize Becky, who has spoken to the board before, that although she came as a parent, she is an ICU nurse here in Medina. So she's bringing expertise to us, and I wanted to make sure anyone listening to Becky's words, to Rebecca's words, would know that about her. What I would like to say is that I appreciate the support and updates that Mr. Sable has proposed, and I certainly hope that they do pass tonight. What I'm hopeful for is that we will, even though we want to stop talking about masks, that we will continue, that this board will continue to think about what the strongest masking policy should be, because we have precedent. We can't call any of this unprecedented anymore. We have plenty of information, and we also know and understand that every time there's a new variant, we have new risks. In the near term, I'd also like this board to talk about better hygiene processes within the school. Masks seem to be the minimum at this point. Now we're saying that we need this type of mask that I'm wearing, that what we all invested in isn't even good enough. So masks should be the minimum. I know many parents are emailing great suggestions. I know that we have spacing issues. I know that lunch and music classes are issues where we're having spread because of removing the masks. So please consider what from the 2020-2021 school year we can consider bringing back. I know social distancing minimums of 3 feet is going to be a real challenge because we have all the kids. I chose MOTA for my family. I felt lucky and privileged that I was able to do that I was able to remove my students because I knew I could manage them at home. And we didn't need to be bodies in the school for the kids who really needed to be there. So let's think about this long term. Let's stop thinking about what's just in front of us. Let's think about how we're going to handle this going forward beyond masks. I would like to suggest that we talk about maybe a 3.0, that there's always streaming in the classroom so that when parents have a symptom of one kid, they don't have to make that fast decision about what to do with the other kids, what to risk. And they don't lose that learning time. I know we want the kids in school, but it pains me to think about losing the days on the front end when you can't decide whether to send a kid, whether it's going to be excused. It just seems like having streaming from the classrooms would be a more reliable way to handle this, and that would help with the flu. That would help with if a grandparent is in hospice in some other state and a family needs to travel. I can think of so many reasons that would be beneficial for us just going forward as a school of the future if we start thinking about how that hybrid virtual environment could be a benefit to all of us, not just because of COVID. And thanks. And everything that you guys shared was super informative. This was a great meeting.
Thank you, Gretchen. And lastly, we have Angela Wish.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay. All right. I'm Angela Wish, River Rockway. I just wanted to congratulate all the new board members. Welcome. And thank you guys for the updates on the new updated mask mandates. I am supportive of the improvements that you have made. I also, too, would just encourage consideration of community spread. I did like what Rebecca had to say in regards to our children aren't going to school in a vacuum. The community, what is going on around us does play a factor. So, but in general, we do just, I do like the idea of an additional considerations for the future of a 3.0 or a virtual option for the most vulnerable, for sick kids that are missing extra school. I know many families that have had staggered COVID infections that have taken kids out for long periods of time, not just their own infections. So just I guess I'll keep this short and sweet. I appreciate you hearing me, and thank you.
Thank you. Since we did not use all of our time allowed, if there is anyone else that would wish to speak, you may approach the podium. Okay, all right, we will proceed then, thank you. Treasurer's item, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Sable, your action item.
The first action item tonight is a resolution for adjustment regarding masks for COVID-19.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution.
I'm going to read through it.
All right, I'll take that back.
I'm not going to read the background information. This is directly from the CDC, and this has appeared on all of the resolutions that we've had. I will read the resolution for masks regarding COVID-19. It's recommended that the Board of Education retroactively approve the implementation of a mask mandate at H.G. Blake Elementary School effective December 15th through December 16th, 2021, and a district-wide mask mandate effective January 3rd through January 14th, 2022. It is recommended effective January 18th, 2022, that the Board of Education authorize the superintendent or designee to implement a face mask mandate for students in a school building if COVID positive levels for students reach 1% or higher at a building PK through 12. Face masks to be supplied by the Medina City Schools Board of Education to students and staff if needed. Once a face mask mandate is issued, it will stay in effect for at least 2 weeks. The 2 weeks of data on COVID cases will be reviewed to determine if the face mask mandate can be rescinded. The face mask mandate will be rescinded if the COVID positive percentage drops below the benchmark percentage level at the 2-week interval. Should a building fall under a mask mandate during the 2-week period of time, this should include all extracurricular activities and athletics. The board authorizes the superintendent or designee to make adjustments to this mask mandate as appropriate. Adjustments may include the implementation of a mask mandate to a class, grade level, and/or building due to increased absentee rates, which may indicate COVID spread, or the early implementation of a mask mandate prior to the end of a data period when one is imminent.
Mr. Ross?
I'll make a motion to approve the superintendent's resolution regarding the mask mandate.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Thank you, Mr. Nichols. Is there any board discussion?
Yeah, I'd just like to just say, yeah, we've been living with this for a long time, but from my own personal experience, I've been wearing a mask at my place of employment for 22 months now, 24 months, I don't know. And I can say that we haven't had any cases transmitted in my building. Yeah, we've had people test positive and whatnot, but nobody that we've had to isolate or send home for transmission, to the best of our knowledge. I think they work. I talk to my son quite a bit. He's a senior, and he wants to graduate, and he wants to stay in school. So I guess my lesson from all this is that we need to adapt, and I think these changes are good changes. And if we need to come back around sometime in the future, we come back around sometime in the future. So we just keep adapting as we go. So I think these are good changes and whatnot. That's it.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you. Mr. Chambers?
Mr. Ross? Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Ms. Pritchard?
Aye.
Mr. West?
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst?
Aye.
Thank you. So if it pleases the board, item number 1, supplemental to the 2021-2022 permanent appropriations. It is recommended the Board of Education approve the following supplementals to the permanent appropriations. You have the 3 items as discussed. Item number 2, adoption of the fiscal year 23 tax budget. It's recommended the Board of Education adopt the 23 tax budget as discussed prior.
Make a motion to approve treasurer's action items 1 and 2.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Ross and Ms. Pritchard. Are there any board discussion? I did want to thank Angie Sellers for reaching out for that grant. I think it's great that we have staff that feel empowered to do that, and that we were able to get that for something, because that $3,000 that you mentioned for the food distribution isn't very much. It's something, and we're always grateful for what we can get, but consider for the amount of time and hours that were involved. It's not that much, but I thank everyone for their efforts involved in that. We do appreciate it. Let me call roll, please.
Mr. Ross?
Aye.
Ms. Pritchard?
Aye.
Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Mr. West?
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst?
Aye.
Thank you.
Number 1 is donations. It is recommended that the Board of Education accept the following donations. And I always like to point out when our student clubs or organizations are making donations back to our community. And we have funds that are raised by 5th grade students at Garfield that they are donating to the Cleveland Clinic main campus to support children staying at the Cleveland Clinic. Number 2, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve World Risk Management as the excess cost insurance provider for workers' compensation, estimated at approximately $52,000, effective February 1st, 2022. And this is an annual item for insurance that we're required to carry. Stipend payments. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the stipend payments from Kent State University to Bradley Dalzo and Kathleen Kramer in the amount of $200 each, and Tiffany Nicole in the amount of $325 for serving as cooperating teachers for Kent State University students during the fall 21 semester. And then the high school course offerings that were presented by Mrs. Cassidy this evening. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the new high school course offerings for the 22-23 school year. And then service agreement for the ESC. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following service agreement amendment for the 21-22 school year. And this is to provide nursing services and substitute medical services at the Medina Christian Academy for the 21-22 school year, which auxiliary funds will be used to pay for this. And I say this every time we have an ESC contract change on here, but we don't blanket our ESC contracts here in Medina. Anytime there's a change, we come back to the board to make any adjustments. And then number 6 is a field trip. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following overnight field trip in compliance with Policy 2340 for the 21-22 school year. And this is for the girls varsity basketball team to participate in the Classic in the Country Showcase. And I think that's actually this coming weekend in Berlin, Ohio. And number 7 is personnel. It is recommended to the Board of Education to approve the following personnel recommendations pending approval of all required documentation, as well as passing of the FBI and BCI approval. And we do have 2 retirements this evening, and I believe Dr. Kwolek is presenting on at least one of those.
Sorry. Which number? So, oh yes, absolutely. These are 2 amazing employees. So they're both support staff retirements. So Janet Jenkins is retiring from Wade Elementary and has been a long-time employee for that staff. And we wish her the best moving forward. But just an amazing contributor and a manager of the cafeteria, serving students for a long time. And Patty Porter has been a parent in the district And as Jean, I think, added, I'm pretty sure I worked with her kids, and now she's retiring from the district. So you get to the point where you know the kids here a long time. So Patty served our students with special needs at the high school and just did a fabulous job. So we're going to miss both students, staff members, and their students that we may have worked with or may not admit that in person. But we're very thankful for our staff, as a lot of the board members commented on, and appreciative of all their work here, and we will miss them both very much. Lucky we have about another month, 6 weeks or so with them as they'll be moving forward during the school year.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the superintendent action items J 1 through 7.
Second?
Thank you, Mr. Nichols. Thank you, Mr. Ross. Board comments? Okay, I would like to just echo Mr. Sable's shout out to the kids at Garfield. That's great that they were able to fundraise and for families and other children in need. That says a lot about our kids and our community. That's great. And I do want to thank our curriculum committee for the new course offerings. It's always great to have additional courses to offer for our students. Mr. Sable, I did just want to also confirm that the service agreement with the ESC for Medina County, those are pass-through funds, correct? Because MCA is a private?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay, if there's no other discussion or comments, Mr. Chambers, you may roll.
Yes, Mr. Nichols.
Aye.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Ms. Pritchard.
Aye.
Mr. West.
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we are going to move to executive session to consider the appointment, employment, discipline of a public employee or official, to consider the investigation of charges or complaints against a public employee, official, licensee, or regulated individual, and discussion with the board's legal counsel of disputes involving the board that are the subject of pending or imminent court action. Would
Second.
someone please make a motion? Mr. Ross will make that motion. If I could have a second, please.
I'll second.
Okay.
Mr. West, thank you. There will be no action taken during executive session or upon our return to this room.
Will somebody join us? No, okay.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Mr. West.
Aye.
Mr. Nichols.
Aye.
Ms. Pritchard.
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming this